Monahan parked in front. Docks to Caulfield. Fire. Scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0. Welcome everybody to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. As you know, this is Recliner Sports, and we are on live with Habs After Dark. Montreal Canadiens with an interesting 4-3 loss to the New Jersey Devils. Can we call it interesting? Is that a fair word to use, guys? I found it interesting. It was an interesting game. I learned a lot about the Montreal Canadiens tonight, and hopefully you guys did as well. First thing I need to do, I guess, is to apologize to those of you who were on the last show. I guess I got a little bit salty over something during that game. I was not in the greatest of places, and somebody came into the show whose purpose was, I think, to try and stir things up a little bit. His goal was to see if he could push my buttons, and I allowed him to. And so for that, I apologize, guys. So I'm sorry that last show did not go well, and I take full, complete blame for that. So tonight will be better, I promise. So despite the fact that it's another loss, despite the fact that it's maybe a little bit disappointing, I will offer you some good content tonight, and we'll talk about the game. So I had a few takeaways from the game tonight. And the biggest one that I came away with was that the Canadiens tonight, there was a massive difference between their defensive game and their offensive game. They struggled mightily for the second, perhaps even the third game in a row with their defensive zone coverage. You guys will remember earlier in the year that was a big point of contention. That was a big discussion point. Was how was this team going to do with its new defensive zone system? Right? We talked about the new system, the reads. How some guys were taking longer to adapt to it than others. How some guys were struggling with it. Arbor Jacki in particular was having a hard time with it. He ended up sitting out a few games, sitting in the press box, watching the game from above, and it was something that the team was struggling with. And Marty St. Louis was asked about it a number of times. He talked about the fact that the team, this was a system that they needed to use in order for them to be successful. It was a system that a lot of the better teams in the league were using. There were some members of the media that suggested that maybe the Canadiens should move away from this system, that it was too complicated. The hybrid system. There was even some confusion, I think, at one point where some of the players talked about the fact that the coaching staff kind of changed the way they were teaching the system to the players. Some members of the media, certain people took that to mean that they actually changed the system itself. The reality is that they didn't, and it was hard. It was difficult. But for about a month, they had that system down pat, right? They were doing really, really well with that system. They seemed to have it figured out. They were doing really, really well, covering their own end. Even in the neutral zone, they were doing really, really well. Creating turnovers in the neutral zone and so on and so forth. But for whatever reason, the last I'd say 4 games or so, that system has escaped them a little bit. They have not done nearly as well with that system as they did, sort of from the beginning or the mid part of December up until about a week and a half ago. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why. I don't know why that's kind of escaping them. Why they're not playing that well in that job. They're not doing as well with that system as they did before. But it's the case. It's happening. We see them running around in their own end a lot more. Guys are getting open lanes to the net a lot more. Pucks are sitting in the crease a lot more. They're losing battles on the boards quite often, and they're just not. They're not shutting things down. They're not killing plays. They're not making transition plays. They're not doing all of these things that they were doing so well over that winning period. The difference now is that we've seen what it looks like when it works. Right? The Canadiens have seen it. We've seen it. The media's seen it. Everybody's seen it. We know what it looks like when it's firing on all cylinders. So in that sense, I think the Canadiens are certainly a step ahead of where they were when they were first learning the system. because now I think they have a sense of what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like, and what it's supposed to do. But unfortunately, right now, it's not working. And it's not that it's not working. They're just not able to do it right now. And again, I'm not sure what the answer is to that. I think part of it probably has something to do with the fact that they've had so little practice lately. If you've been following the team closely, you'll know that because their schedule has been so, thank you for the thumbs down, their schedule has been so busy that they haven't really had the opportunity to do all of the practicing that they typically would do. And, they haven't been able to spend the time working on these little adjustments and things like that that they normally do. So that's my first takeaway from the game. And I guess, to add on to that, I think when your defensive zone structure is not working, then it's going to negatively impact your offense, right? So tonight, when the Canadiens did get offensive opportunities, when they did get the puck in the New Jersey zone, they looked really good, right? They moved the puck well, they created scoring chances, they had plenty of opportunities to score. When they had the puck in the offensive zone, they were dominant. They were able to dominate. Now, the difference was that because their defensive zone wasn't working, that they didn't get nearly as many opportunities to have the puck in the offensive zone, right? So not only does the defensive zone system and the defensive zone play, help you defend your goal, it also allows you to create offense, right? You're able to create offense from the defensive zone. So if you're killing plays, if you're winning battles along the boards, if you're creating turnovers from the other team in your end, intercepting passes, all of this stuff, you're creating transition plays for your team, and you're able to move the puck and you're able to get into the offensive zone. So I think the reason why we saw the team ultimately lose tonight was because they were not getting those opportunities off the transition. Certainly not to the same extent and to the same number that they typically do when their defensive zone coverage is working. So to me, that's the biggest takeaway from their game tonight, is that their defensive zone work and their neutral zone work is struggling quite a bit, and because of that, they're not getting the puck enough for them to be able to create those offensive opportunities. When they did get those opportunities tonight, they looked really, really good, and they were able to capitalize on a lot of their scoring chances. The first line, the Slavkovsky, Caulfield, and Suzuki line looked fantastic, right? When they got the puck in the other end, they were able to move it around almost at will, create scoring chances, and so on and so forth. Even the second line, the line A Doc Newhook line at times looked really, really dangerous as well. The problem was, they just weren't getting those opportunities as often as they would have if their defensive zone coverage was working better. And of course, with their defensive zone coverage not working that well, they also struggled in their own zone to keep the puck out of their own net. Again, until if you happen to notice, I guess the third and last takeaway that I'll go over before I get into the comments is that if you noticed in the third period, they kind of said, screw it. We're struggling with our defensive zone coverage. We're going to kind of muscle our way through this now. So instead of sort of, I don't know that they abandoned their defensive zone coverage, but they just said, well, we're just going to block every shot now, right? We're going to get in all the shooting lanes. We're going to, throw our bodies in front of everything, every shot that the other team tries to make, we're just going to get in the way of it. And so, we can't get the puck from them, so what we'll do is we'll just, we'll sacrifice our bodies, and we'll kind of, bulldoze our way through it like a bull in a china shop a little bit. And I thought, that showed a lot of heart, right? Recognizing that, you weren't doing well in your defensive zone and something had to change, and that, the only thing you could really control at that point was your effort level. And so, it's why I kind of come away from the game a little bit positively about the defensive game, because, a lot of teams would have just, simply gave up or given up and tried to continue with what they were doing. But instead the Canadiens said, there was one shift there where they blocked like 6 shots in like one shift. Now I'm sure they didn't get credit for 6 block shots, but it was an impressive effort by them. It's like a baseball pitcher when he realizes that his fastball is not working and he has to sort of find a way to get the other team out using, other pitches, his curveball, his slider, his sinker, change up, all that other kind of stuff. And it was nice to see that. It shows a level of maturity in the face of adversity to be able to do that. And I thought it was impressive. So all that said, guys, if you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button down below here. If you're enjoying the content, apparently there's 19 of you watching the show right now. If you're enjoying the content and you're not yet subscribed, please do so. We're trying to grow our community. We're right around 275 subscribers now. We'd like to get to 500 if we could as soon as possible. We're working our way towards that. So if you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell as well, and give us a thumbs up. We've got five likes already, 5 thumbs up. Keep them coming. I really appreciate them, and thank you very much. If you're over on TikTok, guys, come on over here to YouTube, and you can be a part of the show over here. Billy D says, "Good game." Yes, I agree. It was a good game. It was an interesting game. It was an entertaining game. Line A needs to make that pass. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't think it's something that I would make a huge deal out of. But that pass, if that pass is made, things look really, really different. I also have to point out that does interference cease to exist in the overtime? Mike Matheson is one of the best skaters in the NHL, and I'm not saying that I know for sure that he would have caught up to Jack Hughes, and at least made him think about that shot a little bit before he went to the net. But that pick by Timo Meier, I mean, again, I don't blame Timo Meier for doing it, but again, just chicken shit refereeing, right? It's a play that clearly affected a scoring chance, and Timo Meier clearly interfered with Mike Matheson by stepping in front of him and blocking his path to get to Jack Hughes, who was on a breakaway. So Monty would have won that game. Yes, I got you. I'm laughing too. Go Habs go, merci Claude. First time I was rooting for the Leafs and they blew it. Anyways, what's the lesson there, Billy D? Poor start to the game cost the Habs tonight. Habs need to play full 60 minutes and not only show up for 25 minutes. Dobesh isn't reason why Habs lost. D was awful tonight. I don't know that I would call it a poor start. I just think that their defensive game was not good all game, from beginning to end. Once they figured that out and they started to adjust a little bit to it, they were able to do better. But again, more than it being a sort of a poor start, I would say that it was a situation where their offense was firing really, really well and their defense wasn't. Not going to win many with giving up 40-plus shots a game. I agree completely, Gary, and it's why I think they need to work on a little bit more on their defensive zone systems. But again, like I said, we've seen what it looks like when it works, right? It looks really good when it works, and they know what it looks and feels like when it works. So hopefully they can get back to that. They did do well to get a point tonight, Billy D. I agree. Andre, what is going on? Welcome. Thank you. Dobesh did play well. Again, I talked about it the other day, right? When everyone was jumping down my throat about Sam Montembeault, the point I was making there was you can struggle in a hockey game, but, if you make the saves when they count, right? Dobesh would probably tell you himself that he could have saved at least one or two of those first 2 goals, maybe both, right? But he didn't allow that to define the game for him, right? He came back in the second half of the game and certainly in the third period made a ton of really big saves for the Canadiens. And as Andre points out, he faced 45 shots and he saved 41 of them. So again, it was an impressive performance by Dobesh again. Again, I don't think that this was a game where you would say that, we saw, some chinks in his armor or anything like that. I think he's still, he's still on the right path. Entertap, welcome. Thank you, pal. Slow start, but got to admire Habs' ability to stick with it and earn that point. Gutsy effort and solid effort by Dobesh to keep them relevant at key times. I agree with all of that stuff. Top line really had a solid game, especially Slavkovsky, created opportunities continually all night long. Yes, I agree with that as well. I thought the first line played really, really well. I thought in the first period that the bright spot of the first period for me was probably the second line. I thought they played quite well in the first period. I think they got outshone a little bit in the second period by the Suzuki line. So again, I thought that line played really well also, Intertap. Yes, Billy D, thank you. Laura, Houston, welcome, Laura. Thank you very much. Do I do live chats other than just after the games? By the way, I'm Lanny, not Laura. Oh, okay. I thought I was going to have our first female guest on the show, Lanny. But you're good too. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming back. Right now I'm only doing Habs After Dark, which is a show only after Canadiens games. But I do have I'm working on developing a new show that's going to be probably Wednesday evenings around 7-ish p.m. I want to say. I know that might not be a great time for everybody. I'm cognizant of trying not to step on Coach Frenchie's toes, and he's doing shows most evenings around 8:30. So I'm trying to avoid that. But we will be putting together another show called Habs Therapy Day, and it's going to be more of a headline kind of show where we talk about specific topics related to the NHL and the Montreal Canadiens. Guys, if you're over on TikTok, come on over, follow the instructions on the screen behind me, and join us on YouTube if you want to. If you have questions and you want to be part of the show, come on over here. Dobish had another great. Yeah, he did. I agree. Yeah, I don't think it was his best game. I think he obviously, I think he, like I said a minute ago, I think he would have told you himself that he would have liked to have made a couple of those saves. So, thank you, Intertep. I appreciate it. I like chatting with you as well. They did fight back. They did fight back for sure. Yes, Claude. Yes, thank you. Salut, everyone. Question: what the fuck was that pregame head messing stuff about Anderson, Galley maybe weren't playing, and Pizzetta may not play? Well, I don't expect it was really any head messing stuff, Franco. I think it was a matter of both of those guys probably are dealing with some some injury concerns, and there was some question as to whether or not they would be able to play. And the Canadiens called up Raphael Harvey-Pinard, in the event that he couldn't play. I don't think they would have called up Harvey-Pinard just to play head games. Harvey-Pinard, as I understand it, is in order for him to go back down now, they'll have to clear waivers. He'll have to clear waivers. So I don't think they would have brought him up just because. So I'm not sure exactly what that was all about. Again, with the Canadiens farm team being in Laval, it's not a big deal to call guys up and down. It can happen pretty quickly. I mean, the teams are around each other quite a lot anyway. I think you'll probably see between now and the time that Emil Heineman returns to the lineup, I think you'll probably see the Canadiens call up a number of guys, to spot in that fourth line winger role. Pizzetta actually played okay tonight. I thought he played all right. I mean, when I say he played okay, it's certainly not a criticism of him. I think he's been mishandled. I think that the situation that he's in right now is one that very few players would be able to to do any better than he's doing right now. So it's not a criticism of him per se. But again, I think the Canadiens are also very conscious of not messing with what's going on in Laval right now and letting Laval sort of, have a consistent lineup game in and game out so that they can continue to play well and they can continue to work towards a playoff spot and give those players that experience, which I think will be a big part of their future if they are able to have that experience, right? Fans got their money's worth. Yeah, I think it would have been an entertaining game to watch. I mean, it was an entertaining game to watch, and if you were live, I don't think you would argue that you didn't get your money's worth. But again, I think the big issue here right now is that they're struggling again with their defensive zone coverage, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't have an answer, but fortunately, the offensive game looked really, really sharp tonight. Like they, really sharp. Do I see Anderson's game a bit more timid since that injury scare? I don't know if I would call it timid. I thought the entire team looked a little bit timid, especially on their own side of the red line tonight, Intertap. I think his game has maybe been a little less effective, and I think I think you're right. I don't know that what he's dealing with is related to that same play that where I can't remember who the player was that kind of fell onto his leg and kind of bent it sideways a little bit, and it didn't look good. But I think he's definitely dealing with something, and I think that's also one of the reasons why prior to the game, the suggestion was that, either he or Gallagher might not be able to go. I'm not sure what Gallagher's dealing with, and I'm not sure what Anderson's dealing with, but I suspect that neither one of those guys are really at 100%. Review of the week, yeah, that'll probably be part of Habs therapy day, Andre. I think it'll probably be a review of the week, and I also want to do a segment called Rebuild 101. There you go, Entertap. Yeah, Rebuild 101, because I think there's a lot to talk about the rebuild. Entertap will attest to the fact that I can talk for hours and hours and hours about the rebuild. I think it's one of the most fascinating things about this team. And it's one of the coolest things about being a Montreal Canadiens fan right now is the rebuild. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the rebuild, some of which comes from the fans and the media. I had to deal today with. I listened to the Basu and Godin notebook today, and it drives me crazy that Arpon Basu continues, despite the fact that he knows that in the mix was never a goal for the Montreal Canadiens. It was never their goal to be in the mix, right? Their goal was to continue to improve, and if they were able to continue to improve and develop, that they expected that the team would be in a position to play meaningful games in March and to be in the mix, right? It was never expressed as if we're in the mix and we're playing meaningful games in March, the season will be a success. But if we're not, it will be a failure. It was never expressed that way. Never, ever, 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 ever. Not by anybody. Not once, not ever. But yet, certain people in the media continue to express it as a goal. Like Arpon Basu will say, at the beginning of the season, the Canadiens told us that it was their goal to be in the mix. It never was. It never was. And I don't care how many times, people want to say that. It's just never going to be true. Right? Jeff Gorton was very, very clear when he was asked about what in the mix means, that he was not setting a goal for this team. He was not setting, an expectation where if they were in the mix, it would be a success, and if they weren't in the mix, it would be a failure. So getting back to, the Habs therapy day, I want to do a section or a segment or something on the show where we talk about different aspects of the rebuild. And we do a bit of a deep dive or dig a little bit deeper into that. So that's kind of another thing I want to do. But a review of the week, headlines, things like that as well. That's kind of what I'm thinking about for that show. Do I think Martin Necas could be a great fit for Colorado? Martin Necas is an interesting player. I mean, for the first 30 games of the year this year, he was a world beater. Like, he looked like he was going to have 125 points. He's obviously cooled off a little bit. Since then, I think that he is going to struggle to be a good fit in Colorado. In order to play in Colorado right now, you have to be a guy who fits the Nathan MacKinnon. You have to, you need a certain level of approval from Nathan MacKinnon. If you want to play in Colorado. And Nathan MacKinnon is a really, really hard taskmaster, right? He's got a way of approaching the game that not a lot of people can live up to. And so, you either have to be living up to his view of what it looks like to play in the NHL, or you have to be producing, one of the two. I think you can probably get away with not being a guy who eats cauliflower powder and broccoli dust with every meal and that kind of thing that Nathan MacKinnon is into, or you're doing like Pilates and having your own personal chef who makes you whatever, milkshakes and all this kind of stuff. I think you can get away with that if you're producing. I mean, look at, a guy like Nichushkin who seems to be getting away with it over there. But again, if you're not producing at that level, you better be working at that level, and you better be doing the things that will be approved by somebody like Nathan MacKinnon. So I'm not sure that Necas fits that. If Necas plays the way he played, through the first 30 games of this year, and I think he'll be okay there. But Necas to me strikes me as a guy who might be a bit temperamental. if I can say that. But on the other hand, maybe going there changes, like, Jonathan Drouin, right? Jonathan Drouin obviously turned his career around by going to Colorado. And obviously, he had the added element of being really good friends with Nathan MacKinnon from their years in junior hockey, and there was a connection there. But we'll see. We'll see, Marc-Antoine. I know that's a long answer to a short question, but so the answer, I guess, is I think he could be a great fit or a good fit. But again, I have some questions whether he was the guy that I would have gone after from the Colorado lineup from the Carolina lineup if I were Colorado. Laura or Lanny, I love the idea of Therapy Day just to talk about the future of the team and possible draft picks and the rest of the league and where the Habs are within. Yeah, that's the idea, Lanny, is to have a show that's not specifically focused on a game. It's focused more on the team in general and what's going on with the team and to deal with some of the issues of the day. I think that this game was Dobesh getting his cherry busted as a former goalie coach. I can say he played uncomfortable, often out of position, and more like Fleury. Not a bad thing, just has to happen. Yeah, I think I would say that probably, he dealt with some adversity tonight that I think his last game he dealt with some adversity as well. I can't remember who it was against off the top of my head. I think his last two games have been, good. I mean, he's still obviously more than a fine backup goaltender in the NHL. He's playing just fine. But I don't think I think he's dealt with some adversity in those two games that he didn't really have to face prior to that. But again, I think, he certainly was. What I really liked was that for a young goalie, when he allowed certainly the backhander goal from Bratt, he certainly, he didn't allow that. You saw him shake his head and he knew he should have had it and he, was upset with himself. But he didn't sort of get inside of his own head and allow that to sort of stay with him for the rest of the game. Albert played a solid game, was not on the ice for any goal, and was skating. Albert. Who's Albert, Andre? I'm not sure who you mean by Albert. Albert? I realize it's probably a typo, but I'm trying to figure out whose name would turn into Albert with a typo. I don't think so, Lanny. Should they maybe try Line with Suzuki? No, I don't see any reason why you would mess with the forward lines right now. I think they're both they're all doing quite well. Certainly, line 1 and line 2 are doing just fine. I have no issue with. I'm not sure what would motivate you to want to do that, Lanny. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit more. I think Line is playing fine. I think that the first line is playing spectacularly. In fact, I think the second line is certainly showing signs of being really, really effective. They are definitely effective at times, and for them right now, it's a matter of getting a little bit more consistency and doing it on a more regular basis. So, I don't see any reason to mix up the lines, especially any in the top 6. Many players have reached their ceiling. The future is bright. And for Colorado, it was a business decision. Thank you for the thumbs down, guys. Appreciate it. And thank you for the thumbs up, guys. I don't know why we've only got 6. We've got 15 people in the show right now. So if you're enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. If you're not, give us a thumbs down. That works too. But I don't know what I've done to piss anybody off tonight. I've been pretty calm and cool tonight. But if you don't enjoy the content, that's good too. Maybe let me know why, what you don't like about it in the comments too. Colorado was a business decision. Agreed. 100%, Andre. And I think that's what a lot of people aren't getting from this. Coach talked about it between periods on his show about how he and I and Entertap kind of disagree. Coach thinks that this is a really bad trade for Colorado. And I'm not 100% in disagreement with him. I think it is not a great trade for Colorado. But at the same time, Mikko Rantanen is everyone says, oh, Mikko Rantanen's a 110-point guy. Well, yeah, he is. But right now he's a lot more than that, right? He's a $14 million guy, and he's a guy whose contract is expiring at the end of this year. So he's a guy who while he is a really good player, one of the best in the NHL, and any team would love to have Mikko Rantanen on their team, having Mikko Rantanen on your team at $14 million is a very different story. Right? Historically, teams don't win the Stanley Cup with $14 million guys on their team. Right? It's never happened before. Like, no team has ever won the Stanley Cup with a $14 million guy. You don't win the cup with guys who are making, close to 20% of your salary cap in one guy. So from their perspective, certainly because, they also had other guys that, Nathan McKinnon that needed to be paid. From Colorado's perspective, Rantanen at $14 million was not somebody who fit into their plans. And that makes all the sense in the world to me. And that's their business decision. It's the same thing for me. Like, for us, like, if Patrick Laine turns around and says, I want $14 million next year, it's okay, see you later, Patrick. If Lane Hudson says, I want $14 million, to stay here, well, see you later, Lane Hudson, right? And that's a part of the tough love and the tough decisions that you have to make, and not falling in love with players. You can't fall in love with a player. You can't pay a guy $14 million. Like, as much as it's going to draw flack from other fan bases, like, the Edmonton Oilers should not have paid Leon Draisaitl $14 million. Period. Now, you can be an Oilers fan and you can jump down my throat all you want, and you can tell me I'm stupid and I'm dumb and I'm whatever. But, realistically, paying Leon Draisaitl $14 million essentially, in my opinion, shut the door on their opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. Especially when you consider that they're going to have to pay Connor McDavid at the end of next season. Right? Or even, this season, right? He's eligible to re-up, this July. Right? So you can talk about the value of the players on the ice and how good they are and what kind of production they can give you and what kind of whatever they can give you on the ice. But you also, in the salary cap world, have to think about, your cap structure. And you're not winning a Stanley Cup if you've got one guy who makes close to 20% of the cap. You're not winning if you've got two guys who make 30, 35% of the cap. You're not winning the cup if you have three guys who are making like 40 or 50% of the cap. The Toronto Maple Leafs are not winning the Stanley Cup with four guys making $11 million plus. They're not winning the cup with three guys making $12 million plus. They're not winning the cup with three guys making, close to $40 million. Right? Which is why they have to figure out what they're going to do with Mitch Marner. Again, you can jump down my throat and you call me stupid and you call me whatever, but you're not committing 40% of your salary cap to three guys and succeeding in the NHL. It just doesn't work. I find it refreshing that you are able to call out media personalities. Well, I don't know if it's refreshing, Tony. I mean, it's the reality for me. I mean, again, I get that they're doing their job, but to me, they, and some of them are great. I'll tell you, the guys who I like Arpon Basu. I think he's a really hard worker. I think he's a hard worker. I think he's really, really smart guy. He's intelligent. I don't know who keeps hitting the thumbs down and then deleting it, but it's getting a little bit annoying. Whoever keeps doing that, you're hitting the thumbs down and then you're taking it away. I don't know whether you're trying to send a message or what you're doing with that, but it's kind of annoying a little bit. But maybe you're doing it by mistake. But I just keep seeing a thumbs down flash across my screen. And then 5 seconds later, it goes away. Like, it's happening over and over and over again. So someone's doing it. They think it's funny. So anyways, I suppose I shouldn't have addressed it. Now they're just going to think it's even funnier. But I think that Arpon Basu is quite good at his job. He's really, really smart guy. He gets right into it and deep. He analyzes the game really, really deeply. But I think Arpon Basu has a really, really heavy ego. And if you listen to him ask questions from the coaching staff, or especially to Marty St. Louis, you listen to him. He always seems to be trying to catch him in a gotcha moment, and he's always sort of referring to when you listen to him on the podcast, he always talks about, oh well, if you listen to after the game on Tuesday, I asked a question that dealt exactly with this specific topic. He's always trying to, which is fine. Because he works hard and he asks good questions and he does that really, really well. But Arpon Basu is really, really big on trying to prove himself right as well, right? Like, so obviously he gives really good hockey analysis, but he also is really, really keen to show that he's right. And one of the things he's always talked about is in the mix. And either he's fully and completely misunderstood what in the mix meant, or, he's doing it intentionally at this point, which even more recently, like Kent Hughes certainly clarified what in the mix meant in his, mid-season press conference. But yet, Arpin Basu, and he's not the only one. Several others continue. In a way, to me, it's just kind of lazy journalism. It's lazy journalism because they sort of take the what's the word? How do I say this right? They take the obvious and the simple account of what was said, but then they don't take into account the context, right? So Jeff Gorton definitely did say the Canadiens, he talked about the Canadiens being in the mix and how they wanted them to play meaningful games. But then he was asked to clarify it, and he said, well, we're not putting expectations on them with respect to in the mix, and we're not going to tell these young players that, if they're not in the mix, they're going to fail. We have a lot of young players, and, they still have a lot to prove, and they still have a lot to learn, so development is more important. Kent Hughes said the same thing in his midseason press conference. So again, to me, it's lazy. In the mix is definitely a thing, and it's definitely a thing that exists, and it's a thing that the Canadiens would like to see happen. They'd love for this team to be in the mix because, by playing games that are meaningful, as the season progresses, it gives them an experience that they didn't have before. But again, the Canadiens are not judging this season based on whether or not they are within a certain amount of games of a playoff spot at the end of the season, right? They're judging this season by whether or not they see a clear improvement and development within, individual players and the team as a whole from last year to this year. And what they think is that if they do see that improvement and that development at the same rate that they've seen in the past, then they would expect the team to play meaningful games in March, which would mean they're in the mix. But again, in the mix is not a goal. Again, I'm rambling. A-team, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, and Carrier, honorable mention to Gooley. You're extraordinarily close, and you're going to be mad at me when you see the A-team enter tap because I kind of cheated a little bit. Do I see Laine signing long-term with the team? I do. The more I listen to him talk, the more I feel like he really likes playing in Montreal. If you listen to his interview on Spit and Chicklets, he was pretty clear about that. The fact that, in his last year in Columbus, he honestly didn't really know whether he even wanted to play hockey anymore. And he told the GM that several times. Like, listen, I may or may not come back. This might be it for me. And so, and then he talked about how, being in Montreal has made the game fun again for him. He enjoys going to the rink. He enjoys, the teammates. He enjoys the environment. He enjoys the atmosphere, right? He even talked a little bit about, trying to get, Nikolai Ehlers to come and, different things like that. So, Billy, I'm not seeing any thumbs down. Do I see different on my end? Yes, my screen's very different than yours, Billy. The comments that I see are on the screen on the right hand side of my like what I see, and it's the comments are. I'm not looking at YouTube right now. I don't have YouTube open. I actually have YouTube open on my laptop down here. But the screen I look at is very different than you. So I see the thumbs up on the top of my screen just over there, and all the comments are on that side of the screen down the side. So I see the thumbs up, and then I see the thumbs down. And when either a thumbs up appears, it comes up across the screen like that. And when a thumbs down comes across, it comes down across the screen like that. Right now we've got 8 thumbs up, guys. We have 0 thumbs down. But again, there's 14. I believe it says there's 14 people currently watching the show. So keep them coming. I appreciate it. Perfect example, Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, absolutely, Andre. Natchez is very underrated. He is currently on a 92-point season pace, and the difference he makes will be in the playoffs, strong on the puck. Yeah, I see that. I mean, but to me, Natchez is a bit of an unknown for me, Intertap, and that's sort of where I struggle with him. He's certainly capable of being a 100-point guy, and he's on a 92-point pace right now because of the first 25 or 30 games of the season, right? Like, he's certainly slowed down significantly in the last little bit, and to me that inconsistency kind of worries me a little bit. And certainly last year, he's just one of those guys who hasn't really lived up to expectation, and then sort of the noise around him kind of wanting out of Carolina in the offseason, whether it came directly from him or through his dad, kind of throws me a little bit, right? So when you're getting rid of a centerpiece guy like a Mikko Rantanen, and to me, I would want to bring back a guy who had a little more certainty about him. And again, coming into Colorado, you're coming into Nathan MacKinnon's world, and I have some insight on what I have a really good friend, a good friend who is related to Nathan MacKinnon, and I hear a lot about, and it's nothing negative about the guy. I mean, the guy has really, Nathan MacKinnon is very, very, very serious about hockey, and he's very, very serious about the success of the Colorado Avalanche, and you need to fit, if you want to play there, you need to have Nathan MacKinnon's approval in a lot of ways. I know that sounds a little bit more. It sounds worse than what it probably really is. I mean, I don't think he's sort of sitting there telling guys to get out or whatever, but Nathan MacKinnon plays a very, very, very big role on that team as far as preparation, what he expects from people. Like you hear the stories about. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Gary Roberts, right? Gary Roberts now is like a total health nut. He's into all this stuff. And you hear the old stories about when Gary Roberts played hockey, how he would he would, not yell at players, but he would give them a hard time and basically tell them off if they were eating shitty food and if they weren't taking care of their bodies. And they weren't. I feel like Nathan MacKinnon is kind of in that mold a little bit. So, but I agree. I mean, Natchez is very capable of doing great things in the NHL. But for me, there's just a level of question. There's a level of question mark there for me. But again, I don't think they had a lot of choices. Rantanen had to go, and again, everyone sees a guy who scores 110 points and thinks, "Oh my God, everyone's going to want him." You should, you basically should be able to put the word out that Rantanen wants to be traded, and that every team in the league is going to offer you, the moon for him, and that's not the case. Same thing with Marner, right? Nobody's lining up to pay Marner. Nobody's lining up to take Marner off Toronto's hands, right? They're not lining up to give up, first round draft picks and have to, if they trade him, they'll get a good return for him. But again, you're signing a guy for like the rest of the season, and then the right to sign him to a huge contract. And that, a lot of teams aren't interested in that. Dobesh, welcome, Anonymous. Dobesh played extremely well. Our defense was leaving guys open all game. Absolutely. What we talked about at the beginning of the show, Anonymous, the defensive zone coverage is struggling. And Dobesh tonight was forced to be the last line of defense. Dobesh will succeed if he steps up to the challenges. He is in every team's book as a challenger to fight goalie who loses it when challenged. His game is played in his mind. Yeah, and that to me is one of his strengths, right, Franco? Is his mental game appears to be quite strong. If you listen to Sean Starr this morning, Sean Starr does a YouTube show, 9:30. Sean Starr is a morning show host of TSN 690, and he spoke this morning about how in some ways, Dobesh reminds him of Patrick Roy. Perhaps not yet, on the ice, but off the ice, and the way he talks and the way he's confident without being. Patrick Roy was a little bit, I was going to say confident without being a jerk about it. Patrick Roy might have been a little bit of a jerk about it. Dobesh is a very, very sincerely confident guy, and his mental game appears to be quite strong. And he talks not just about the confidence in his game, but also the confidence in, his preparation and what he's done to get where he's at right now. That's why the Canadiens are stocking up on picks to keep the wheel turning. Yeah, I mean, they're stocking up on picks, I think, because they realize that, picks are very valuable because picks turn into prospects and prospects turn into NHLers, right? And prospects, not all prospects turn into NHLers, but the more prospects you have, the more likely you're going to get NHLers out of them, right? So there, a percentage of prospects, depending on where they're drafted, will succeed in the NHL. So, math tells you that Entertap is a math teacher. He'll tell you that, if 40% of your draft picks are going to make it to the NHL, you'd much rather have 20 draft picks than 10 draft picks, right? Because you're basically doubling the number of your draft picks that are going to make it. The Canadiens, I think, part of a rebuild, one of the central, most basic components of a rebuild is that you're focused on rebuilding or building through your own organization, through young players that you draft and develop, as opposed to, going out and trading all over the place and signing free agents and whatever. So realistically, in a scenario like that, the more draft picks you can get, the better. We have a respectful place here. We do, Andre. We try to. Again, I appreciate that I can be as much of a hothead as anybody else. And it's one of the reasons why I came over here, because of that tendency I have. And for me on TikTok and on some of the other platforms, it's but again, I really try to keep it respectful here, and hopefully we can develop a place where we can create a spot for everybody to be that way. Keep those thumbs up coming, guys. Keep the likes coming. It says there's 17 people watching right now. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed yet, and hit the notification bell. If you're watching in a replay, same thing. Please subscribe. We want to get up to 500 subscribers. We're working our way onto it, and hopefully we can get there with your help. Controversy sells. Yeah, controversy sells. There's a lot of, the world, it's a very competitive world, right? The Montreal Canadiens media is a very competitive place right now, whether it's, the more traditional media, or whether it's, the podcasters and, people like me. I mean, I don't consider myself to be in the media. But again, if I just asked you guys, right? I want subscribers. I want people to watch the show. I want people to join here. I want people to, to grow our community so that I'm talking to more people. I want that, right? I want more people to be here. I want the right people to be here. I don't want everybody to be here. So there is an aspect of me, tailoring my content so that more people will come here. But at the same time, I'm not driven by that. Like, and for me, I think that there's value in providing good, well thought out analysis and conversation, as opposed to, saying things that will create, I could come on here and I could create, here are my top 5 Montreal Canadiens of all time, knowing that everybody's going to disagree with that. And that if I say that, Jean Beliveau is my favorite hockey player of all time, somebody else is going to come on and say their favorite, Montreal Canadian of all time is Guy Lafleur, and then we're going to argue about that, and then somebody's going to come in and say Maurice Richard, and then, before you know it, we're all, arguing about it, and blah, 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 and now there's all kinds of people in here because it's, it's an exciting clickbaity topic. But, that's not really what I want to do. It's Corey Pronman, right? Corey Pronman's the perfect example. Right, so Corey Pronman, if those of you who don't know who Corey Pronman is the guy at The Athletic who does, draft and prospect ranking. And, I think he understands, or he's figured out that he can get more attention for his prospect lists if he throws a few wrinkles in them that are designed to rankle the feathers of certain fan bases. Right, so he's looking for clicks. So it is what it is. It is what it is. Gotta go, but can't wait to chat again. All right, Lenny, I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate you all the time. You come by anytime. I really enjoy chatting with you, man. New Jersey is a fast team. They're a good team. They're a good hockey team. I think they're, again, I think the Canadiens demonstrated today that they're certainly capable of playing with any team in the league. New Jersey, I think, has struggled a little bit lately. But yeah, the Canadiens can play with anybody. And tonight, offensively, I thought the Canadiens looked really, really good. Have I noticed that Carrier was on with the first line, or was that just an anomaly? What do you mean by that? So you mean Carrier and Goulet played a lot tonight when the first line was on the ice? I didn't notice that per se. I mean, I could go back and look at that. There's obviously, there's three defensive pairings and there's four offensive lines, so it's hard to sort of pair up one defensive line or one defensive pairing with a specific line. I thought that Carrier and Goulet both played really well tonight, so they probably saw a lot of ice time. Again, that's easily confirmed. Let's see what their ice time was like tonight. Carrier had, Goulet led the team in ice time tonight, 25-11, and Carrier had 22-57. So again, that third pairing only had 12. Like Savard only had 12:37, and Jack-Eye only had 13:56. So again, you add the overtime to that too, right? So Matheson and all four of those top four guys, I think, would have seen the ice in the overtime. So yeah, do I think Primo's kind of done with now? I don't know if you've been paying attention, Anonymous, but Caden Primo is 6-0 with a 935 save percentage in the American Hockey League right now. So again, I don't know that we're going to call it quits on his career yet. He's still only 26 or 27 years old, and he's proving down in Laval right now that he's certainly capable of being an NHL goaltender. I am Andre. I am on Blue Sky. I am on Blue Sky. Yes. I haven't done the math myself, so maybe you should not be asking forgive me, but if we wouldn't be getting the loser overtime points, where would the Habs stand? Well, the Canadiens have how many overtime losses or how many overtime points do they have this year? They have 5 overtime points. So I think it doesn't, I mean, you can say where would they be? Obviously, they've got 53 points. They would be at 48 if they didn't have the overtime points. But Ottawa has 4 overtime points. Columbus has 7 overtime points. Tampa Bay has 3 overtime points. New Jersey has 6. Carolina has 4. Washington has 5. Boston has 6. Florida has 3. And Toronto has 2. So again, even Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh has 8 overtime points. But they only have 48 points. So again, I'm not... I don't think if you take away those 5 overtime points that Montreal has, then you have to take away the overtime points that all the other teams have as well. Well, the AHL is the next step to the NHL, Anonymous, right? And until Jakub Dobesh came to the NHL, he was playing in the AHL. So that's where most goalies play before they come here. So if you can demonstrate an ability to be a very good goalie in the American Hockey League, that it typically means you have a career in the a potential career in the NHL. So I really struggle with this. I really struggle with this sense that a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans seem to have a dislike for Caden Primo, right? Like that they kind of almost want to see him fail or want to see him out of the league or not around anymore. Like, I get it. He didn't play good this year. He struggled. He was not a good goalie. But it doesn't make him a bad person, right? It doesn't, all accounts are that he's a really, really good kid, right? And the team is rooting for him, and they're trying to provide him with every opportunity to revive his career. And so this idea that we're sort of trying to find a reason to dislike Caden Primo and to sort of end his career and get him, out of here or gone or away or whatever. Like, I don't understand this feeling of negativity that like to me, you're a really weird hockey fan if you feel that way about players. Like if part of you wants you're gonna when I tell you that a guy is doing really, really well in the American League and that maybe that means he has a chance to get back in the NHL, and your response is to say, well, but that's just the AHL, so it doesn't really, like, I don't like. Do you not want Caden Primo? Can I ask you that, Anonymous? Would you not want Caden Primo to have success in the NHL, either in Montreal or somewhere else? Like, is that like, would that make you, like, would that disappoint you if you saw him do well in the NHL? Do I think they are showcasing Savard and are going to replace with Struble? I don't see that. I know that they sent Struble down for a rehab stint in the American League. I don't know what obviously, the obvious intent of that is to get him some ice time. I think they probably would lose him if they put him on waivers. I don't think they want to lose him. Ideally, he would be in the American League right now, full time. But I think it's going to be hard to get him there. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know whether they're showcasing Savard or what the plan is. Can't say enough about Carrier. He's been great, absolutely. And Carrier's great, not just because of what he's giving directly, but because of what he means for the other guys, right? He allows Gooley to play on his strong side. He allows some of the other guys to not play as many minutes. So he's, yes, Anonymous, I get he's 26 and had the worst stats. But what's your point? You asked if he's done, and I told you that he's doing really, really well, right? I told you that he's doing really, really well. That he's gone down to the American League, and that he's performed really, really well. 6-0 with a 930 something save percentage, and I don't get why you keep harping on the fact that he had a bad first half of the season for Montreal this year. He had a good season last year. He was a great goaltender in the NCAA. He had great success, in 2 years in the American Hockey League before coming to Montreal. So again, I don't like you. I don't understand fans like you. Like, you say that you like the Montreal Canadiens, but yet one of the players plays badly, and you seem to have it out for him personally. You seem to have a personal vendetta against him that you wouldn't even be happy for him to be able to revive his career. I don't understand that. Like, if a player plays badly, why do you feel the need to dislike him? Like more so, dislike his game. Yeah, I don't like the way he plays, whatever. But you seem to be obsessed with trying to find a way to make sure that this guy never plays another game in the NHL, right? Even players on opposing teams. Like, why would you wish an opposing player badly? Like, he's a human being. Like, he's making a living for his family. He's making money obviously they make a ton of money, and I'm not going to feel badly for them, but this is what they do for a living. Just because you get to watch them on TV do what they do for a living doesn't mean that you can, it really is, I don't say it's a pet peeve of mine, but again, it tells me that you're not a real hockey fan, right? You're not a real hockey fan if you like or dislike, if a player's performance on the ice determines whether or not you like or dislike them or not. That tells me a lot about what kind of a hockey fan you are. Yeah, Justin Barron's the same way, right? I can fully tell you that Justin Barron, is struggling, and he's having a hard time, cementing a role for himself in the NHL. And realistically, the fact that Justin Barron came up to the NHL as quickly as he did probably has been his downfall. And, at this stage, because of the waiver rules in the NHL, he can't go down to the American Hockey League and go down there and get his confidence back to the point where he might then be able to come back. That really hurts him. I love Justin Barron. I watched him play junior hockey. He's from Halifax, where I'm from. I watched him play for the Mooseheads. I know what kind of defenseman he is. I know how good he is, and I know the raw skills that he has and what he's capable of doing on the ice. But I also know that he hasn't been able to do that in the NHL yet. Do I hate Justin Barron because he turned over the puck a lot and was, a guy who hurt the Montreal Canadiens, during that first half of this season? Do I throw a party because they traded him and he's in Nashville? Am I happy because he's struggling in Nashville? Right? Am I happy because he's not, doing well in that? No. I hope Justin Barron becomes an all-star defenseman in the NHL. I'd love to see it. It'd be ideal for me, right? Primo, go, but he was a question mark, making it between Allen and Monty, taking into consideration the pro he's. I think his time's running up, that's all. I never said I don't. Well, you are saying you don't like him. What do you mean his time's running up? Like, what do you mean his time? Like, why would you focus? First of all, why are you even talking about Caden Primo right now? Like, why are you bringing him up? Are you bringing him up because you really like him and you want to know how well he's doing in the American Hockey League? No. You're bringing him up when he's completely irrelevant to tonight's game. He's completely irrelevant to the conversation. And if he is relevant in any way, shape, and form, it's because he's doing so well in Laval. And when I point that out to you, you want to argue against it, right? When I point out to you that he's doing really well in Laval, you want to continue with this narrative that his time's running out and that his career's over. And to me, that makes you a bad person. Because Caden Primo is a 26-year-old kid whose dream is to play in the NHL, and he's doing really, really well right now. And instead of saying, "Oh, it's really nice to see Caden Primo, turning things around a little bit in the American Hockey League," you want to sit here and you want to argue that it doesn't mean anything because it's just the AHL, and that you feel like his time's running out on him. He's 26 years old. He's got a long career ahead of him if he wants. Maybe it's in the NHL, maybe it's in the American League, maybe it's in Europe, maybe it's somewhere else. But again, this, why you would sort of have this desire for him to fail, and for him to, I don't understand that. Like, to me, that makes you a bad person. Well, it seems like this guy wants him to fail, Franco, right? Like when I point out that he's succeeding in the American Hockey League, the response is, "Well, that's just the American Hockey League. It doesn't mean anything. I still think he's on his way out." Like what? Like why? Why would you say that? I don't get it. Okay, then why do you keep bringing it up, Anonymous? It strikes me as odd. It strikes me as odd that you continue to argue against the fact that Caden Primo is doing well right now. It's a fact. He is. It's a fact that he's doing well right now. Yes, it's in the American Hockey League. It's not at the NHL level, but it's a huge step in the right direction for him to return to potentially a spot in the National Hockey League. Pizzetta played tonight. Any thoughts? Is he hanging on? He's living the dream. Love it, but why not RHP? Just to say. I don't know that RHP would offer you anything more than Michael Pizzetta is right now. Obviously Michael Pizzetta has more experience than RHP. Michael Pizzetta has been with the team all season long, right? So he's, despite the fact that we haven't seen him in any games, he's on the ice in practice. So he's got, some level of familiarity with the systems. Pizzetta's a good hockey player, but Pizzetta didn't play a single hockey game for more than 2 months. So he's struggling a little bit that way. So again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that Pizzetta. I don't think that they're expecting a whole lot from that spot in the lineup. Whether it's Pizzetta, whether it's Beck, whether it's RHP, whoever it is, right? So at this point, I thought that Pizzetta actually played kind of good tonight. All things considered, I mean, he played better than he has. I think he's maybe getting a little bit more comfortable out there because he's played a few games in a row now. So again, I just think that I don't know that RHP is going to give you anything different. And Pizzetta again, at least he knows the systems and whatever. They did rush him in Colorado, Andre. Absolutely. Players I dislike is Kotkaniemi. I do not wish him. Yeah, I mean, I don't like. There are a lot of players that played in Montreal that I didn't like the way they played, or I didn't like. Like Jeff Petrie is probably the only player who I would ever say that I don't like that I would talk shit about, and that's because I think to me he quit on the team. To me, he sold a good coach down the river. He threw a guy who I think is a really good coach. He threw him under the bus, and as a result, that coach looks like he may have lost his opportunity to be a head coach in the NHL. But again, it is what it is. No, that's not what happened, Anonymous. I mean, you can have revisionist history about it, but there's lots of people here who saw what happened. You asked, do I think Primo's career is done? And I said, no, I didn't. And I explained to you that he's doing quite well. I'm not going to spend too much time on this anymore, Anonymous. It's getting kind of boring to me. But I explained to you that he's doing quite well in the American Hockey League. And so that, no, I don't think that his career is done because, he seems to have turned it around. And your response was, well, you said that's just the AHL. Right? So again, you've asked me whether I think Caden Primo's career is done. And I've told you that, no, I don't think it's done. but you've obviously asked me because you think it is done, right? So you've asked me, you've asked me a bit of a disingenuous question. You've asked me a question because you want me to agree with you, right? You think that Primo's career is done. And because I haven't agreed with you and I haven't said, yeah, I agree with you, his career's done, he's going nowhere, because I've said to you, no, I think he could turn it around and he's doing really well in the American League. Now you're arguing against me, right? So that's what's happened here. So you can pretend that something different's happened. I'm okay, Billy D. I'm not upset about this at all. This is fine. You can argue that that I've done whatever, but you've asked me a question because you wanted me to answer it a certain way, and because I haven't answered it a certain way, now you continue to push it, right? So it is what it is. Caden Primo's a good goaltender. He'll likely get another chance in the NHL if he continues to play the way he is in the American Hockey League. And the answer to your question originally, if you want me to answer it, is no. I don't believe that. I don't believe that his career is over, and I do believe that he still has a good future or a decent future in front of him. Exactly is the fourth line. Agree. Corey Perry is a player I don't like that played for the Habs, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Corey Perry is a dislikable guy on the ice, but again, I've never met him off the ice, so I don't know what he's like. Do I get the sense that our playoff hopes is going to come down to the final week, barring injuries? No, I don't, Tony. Our playoff hopes are going to come down to whether or not this team can continue to play well and continue to be mature and continue to be, the team that they've been for the last 6 weeks. Right? That's to me that's what it's going to be. And at the end, and to be the making or not making the playoffs is not it's not the goal for this team. If this team doesn't make the playoffs, the season won't be a failure, right? If they do make the playoffs, it won't be. I mean, it'll likely be a success. But the development of the team and the development of individual players is the goal of this of this organization. And if that happens, then this season will be a success, whether they make the playoffs or not. The Kostitsin brothers, I didn't mind the Kostitsin brothers. I think they were a bit, I think they were kind of a couple of wild cards a little bit, but I didn't mind them. If you're on TikTok, guys, follow the instructions on the screen behind me. Come on over and join us over here on YouTube. It's awesome when former Habs players leave and become Habs killers in their new teams. Cheer for them beating us. Need a therapist. Yeah, I at the end of the day, regardless of how much of a fan you are, I'm a big. I mean, obviously, I know that not everybody can be this way. I'm and again, I recognize that this comes off as obnoxious a little bit, and I know I see it in other people. But to me, I like to be a fan with my head and not just with my heart. Obviously, I love the Montreal Canadiens. I've been cheering for them since I was 3 years old or younger, and my grandfather introduced me to the Canadiens when I was a little kid. And I've been watching, pictures of me sitting in front of the TV when I was 3 years old in my pajamas eating, my dad used to make chips, and instead of buying salt and vinegar chips, we'd pour vinegar on top of the chips. And, anyways, there's, going all the way back. But, to me, I like to cheer for hockey with my head. And when I cheer for hockey with my head, it means that, I don't wish badly on anybody in the league. Austin Matthews is a great hockey player. I think he's fantastic, and I'd like to see him score 70 goals, right? I think it would be awesome. Just because he's a Toronto Maple Leaf doesn't mean I hate him and I don't want him to do well. Everyone, if the Canadiens aren't going to win the Stanley Cup, it would not upset me to see the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. It really wouldn't. I think it would be a fantastic story, and as a hockey fan, it would be a really exciting thing to watch. It would be fun. It would be enjoyable. So from that perspective, I don't dislike Mitch Marner. I don't dislike, Nylander. I don't dislike any of these guys. I mean, I might dislike some aspects of certain players, the way they play on the ice, but, I don't know. I think that it's much more fun to me to be a hockey fan with my head than it is to do it just with my heart. So, anyways, that's just me. Let's get to the scoreboard, guys. Finally, I mean, it's been, we've been on the air for over an hour now, and we're not even close to doing it yet. So as I said, the Devils win in overtime 4-3. I won't go through all the goals in great detail, but I'll go through some of them. The first goal of the game, obviously, from Nico Hischier. Again, soft defensive zone coverage by the Canadiens. They struggled with their defensive zone coverage all game. They have for the last, 3 or 4 games. Brad is allowed to walk all the way from the left wall around the point and into the slot. As he goes towards the net, the entire team sort of collapses on him, and he drops a pass off to Hischier, who scores on the empty net. That's at 15:52 of the first period, 17:48, so about 2 minutes later. It's Jesper Bratt again. He's battling with Caden Gooley behind the net. Gooley's actually doing a decent job. They go behind the net. Gooley sticks with him really, really well, but somehow Bratt manages to get a backhander shot away on net, and Dobish lets it in the goal. Again, that's probably his soft one of the night. He was disappointed, I think, at letting that goal in. It wasn't a great goal. Second period, Suzuki comes out at 3:50. He makes the score 2-1. Kind of gives the Canadiens a little bit of hope. There was a really, really good scoring opportunity right before that on a 3-way passing play between himself and Caulfield and Slafkovsky. He missed basically an empty net, and it was kind of like, oh, God, here we go again. They finally get a chance to score, and they can't put it in the net. And then, 10 seconds later, the exact same 3 guys. Slafkovsky wins a battle on the boards. The puck ends up on Caulfield's stick. He makes a great pass to Suzuki in the high slot, and he just fires a laser past Jake Allen. But again, the Devils come right back and regain their 2-goal lead at 12:56. Again, really, really bad D-zone coverage by Montreal. Tatar is battling with Matheson. They can't. They're not making good reads. They're not killing plays. The puck ends up at the point. Hamilton takes a shot from the point, and it's deflected by Tatar on the goal. Dobish makes the save, but the puck just kind of lays there, and nobody does anything. The puck just lays there, and nobody takes Tatar. Nobody takes the puck, and Tatar, essentially is able to skate the puck into the net and score the goal. Before the second period ends, Caulfield scores. Slafkovsky intercepts a pass in the offensive zone, or in the defensive zone, I guess. He makes a quick transition pass to Suzuki. Suzuki skates it into the New Jersey end. He drops a pass to Caulfield. Instead of shooting right away, Caulfield kind of cuts to the middle and fires a really nice wrist shot, beats Jake Allen. Goal scorer's goal. It's Caulfield's 25th of the year, right? So he's halfway to 50. If he's going to get to 50, he's now halfway there. So that's 3-2 at the end of 2 periods. Canadiens have a little bit of life. Third period, Carrier scores a goal at 3:34. Right off the face-off, Suzuki wins the draw back to Caden Gooley. Caden Gooley passes to the center of the ice where Carrier just wires one from the blue line, and it beats Jake Allen up high. Overtime, Canadiens have a good chance, kind of like a 2-on-1-ish with Matheson and Laine. Laine makes a pass to Matheson. It's a little bit off. Matheson's not able to corral it. Jack Hughes gets the puck. Matheson turns around. Matheson, as we know, is one of the better skaters in the league. Got really, really good wheels. He's trying to chase down Jack Hughes, and probably would have, quite frankly. But Timo Meier just basically skated in front of him and threw a pick and stopped him from being able to get anywhere near Jack Hughes. And the referees, as they are wont to do in situations like that, just swallowed their whistles, and they, were prepared to not do their jobs, and they allowed it to go in. And Hughes goes in and he beats Jakub Dobish all alone breakaway, and that's it. 4-3 overtime win. Shots are 44-32. The high danger scoring chances are 18-5 in favor of the Devils, and the expected goals are 4.6 to 3.4. So again, I don't want to get into that too deeply. Again, I touched on it. I talked at length at the beginning of the show about what I thought was going on here with this game. It was a scenario to me where you had a team who was playing quite well offensively, but was struggling in their own end and in the neutral zone, and because of that, they weren't getting the same opportunities to score. When they did get the puck in the opposing end, they were able to do quite well, but they just didn't get the opportunities, the number of opportunities that they needed in order to win this game tonight. I don't dislike Marner, but I think he's overrated. Again, I feel like I'm disagreeing with everything you say. I don't know that he's overrated. I think he's a fantastic hockey player. I think that he has struggled. Much has been made of the fact that he isn't as good of a performer in the playoffs as he is in the regular season, and I think that has as much to do with the lineup that is around him than it is about him per se. I think Mitch Marner is one of the better all-around hockey players in the NHL. He's a fantastic offensive player, and he's a very good defensive player. But unfortunately, when it comes to the playoffs, Toronto hasn't really surrounded him with the guys that need to be there, and they haven't been able to pull it off. I think it's hard to blame those three guys, Marner, Nylander, and Matthews, as being sort of not good playoff performers. I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think it's more about the team that is around them. Billy, I appreciate what you are doing here. I jumped off another channel after a big argument with a guy who argued Dobes should be number one after his first win. Well, again, I know that there's a lot of people who feel that way, and there's a lot of people who have opinions like that. And again, I'm not, I realize that I'm not going to change everybody's mind, and that there's a lot of people out there who, don't watch as many games as I do, and they don't watch the interviews after the games, and they don't, listen to, as many podcasts, and they, again, I don't expect everybody to do that. And, not everybody has the time to commit to that, and some people, are fans, you don't, whatever, and that's fine. But what bothers me is when those people, make their point, and then when you point out to them well, maybe there's a little bit more to that situation, then they get upset, right? So this whole in the mix thing, right? So if you tell me that the Canadiens said that in the mix was their goal this year, and then I say to you, well, actually, if you go back and look and you read the entirety or listen to the entirety of the interview, you'll see that there was more context to it than that. Well, no, that's not what he said. And then they'll show me a headline from a Globe and Mail article or from a Sportsnet article that says Montreal Canadiens, goal is to be in the mix. Well, yeah, that's lazy reporting, and that's my whole point, right? So I guess again, I get that not everybody can do the deep dive, and not everybody. But again, if somebody tells you, and then plays you actually, a video of Jeff Gorton, explaining it, I don't understand why you then sort of continue to, to fight it, and tell me that I'm wrong, and then you get, personal about it and start calling people names, and, you're a jerk, and, you don't know what you're talking about. And I want to see if I actually have the video here. In any event, I'll get to some comments while that's loading up. Yeah, it's a great memory of my grandfather. My grandfather is the one who made me a Montreal Canadiens fan, Franco, and I'll forever be thankful to him. The majority of my father's family on my dad's side were big Boston Bruins fans. My uncle played in the Boston Bruins organization. He played with Willie O'Ree. He played, in the minor hockey. Played in the Quebec Aces. He played Montreal Junior Canadiens. He played all through through those organizations, but ended up in the Boston organization. So all of my father also played junior hockey in Quebec for Shawinigan, I think it was, affiliated with the Boston Bruins. So, I had that on one side of my family, and then I don't know why my mom's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, but my grandfather was the one who got to me first, and I'm very, very thankful that he did. Let me see if I can do this now. Let's choose a file. I want to play a quick little video. I know I'm harping on this point, and you guys might be bored by it. Agree. If Leafs won, they were the only Canadian team fighting for Stanley Cup. Don't tell anyone. Yeah. Again, it's not even for me. It's not even about them being the Leafs. It's not even about them being the only Canadian team. To me, a team that hasn't won the Stanley Cup for that long, and knowing how committed and how emotional and whatever their fans are. The idea of watching a Toronto Maple Leafs Stanley Cup run as a hockey fan, it's such a great story, and I don't understand why anybody would sort of think that that's not the case. Nice goal by Caulfield tonight. A beauty, absolutely. Reminds you of a Mike Bossy goal. Yeah. Mike Bossy was, scored a lot of goals that way. All right, let's see if I can do this. All right, guys, tell me what you think. Tell me if you think I'm crazy, but this is, and again, I could show you other videos, but this is kind of one of the.
Certainly, I would like to make the playoffs and think our team could, but I don't know. I've been through this before with a couple other teams when you're rebuilding, and you just like to see. I think the players will tell you on the ice if they're ready, and setting the bar, the expectation. I'm not sure that's something that we need to do to tell the players you have to do this or it's a disappointment, because there's just so much there that we have so many young players that that have to play, that need to keep growing.
That was Jeff Gordon at the golf tournament this summer, and he had just finished talking about in the mix, and talking about playing meaningful games and so on and so forth. And a reporter asked him, "Well, what do you mean by in the mix?" And so his response was, "Well, yeah, we'd love to be in the playoffs, but we're not going to set that with the players as an expectation. We're not going to tell these players that we need you to be in the playoffs this year in order for this season to be successful, because it's not fair to those players, because they might not be ready for that, right? They're young and they still need to develop." And for him, what did he say? The players will show us on the ice when they're ready for that, right? And so they'll show us on the ice when they're ready to be in the mix. They'll show us on the ice when they're ready to be, playoff contenders or a playoff team. So it's not like in the mix is not like the goal, and he specifically says it. And yeah, he said earlier on about how they want to be in the mix, but they want to be in the mix, and there's a difference between saying we want to be in the mix and saying this season will be a failure if we're not in the mix, or this season will be a success if we are in the mix, right? Of course they want to be in the mix. And then everybody talks about the players, right? The players want to win the Stanley Cup, right? The players want to win the Stanley Cup. They're not going into the season with any other goal other than that. So when Nick Suzuki walks in the dressing room at the beginning, the first day of training camp, he wants to win the Stanley Cup. He's not talking about being in the mix or making the playoffs or being better than we were last year. The players want to win the Stanley Cup. And that's what you would expect from them. But as an organization, they have, obviously different expectations. So anyways, it is what it is. Enter tap. Slavkovsky was really strong on the puck and won many battles. His passes for the 2 assists were very good. Yeah, he looks really, really good. What I really like about Slavkovsky is, that quick transition pass that he's able to make, right? Like he's got that big, long stick, and he's got that, same thing with Kirby Dach. Kirby Dach hasn't really gotten back to that yet. I think Arpon Basu talked about this on the latest episode of the Basu and Godin notebook. Talked about how Kirby Dach used to make a lot of takeaways, right? He long stick, long body, long arms, long legs, get to a lot of pucks that people didn't think he could get to, and he would, intercept passes and create takeaways and so on and so forth. Slavkovsky's doing the same thing, and what I really like about Slavkovsky is when he does do it, he hits that pass right away, right? He doesn't hold on to the puck or dick around with it like he hits Suzuki, like today, right? As soon as he got that turnover in the defensive zone, he got the puck up to Suzuki in the neutral zone, and the transition game was on. I take Marner before Austin Matthews. I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe soon we Habs fans will be debating Marner versus Matthews like lineups. The video is pretty clear. Again, I get that. I get that in its entirety, Franco. In its entirety, the message was not very clear, and that some of the things that were said about in the mix weren't very clear. And you really had to watch all of the interviews in their entirety in order to fully get the picture that they were trying to present. But it is what it is. All right, Andre. Good night, man. Thank you for coming by. As always, a great time. Bonne nuit, Andre. Billy D says, what do I think Slaff's ceiling is point-wise? I don't know, Anonymous. I think it's too hard to say. It's too hard to say this early. He's still only 20 years old. What did he have last year? 50. I think he's already showing us that he can improve on that. He's probably going to do more than 50 this year. And frankly, I think we'll all agree he hasn't played his best hockey yet. So I think to put a number on him right now, as far as a ceiling, like what kind of points is he going to be putting up as a 26, 27, 28-year-old when he's in the prime of his career? I don't know. I mean, I think he's capable of really, really good things, but I think it's difficult to predict what, to put a number on what we think, his ceiling might be. I grew up with a big spray painted sign next to my home saying, "Go Habs go, Boston is full of shit." But family members loved Bruins. Okay, that's all right, man. Fat fingers, I got them too. I got fat fingers because I've broken all of my fingers on both hands multiple times. I tried to cut that finger off about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. So I've done a lot of work on my hands. So I got fat fingers, and I have a hard time typing too, Franco. So don't worry about it. Seen that video many times. It's a true snapshot, but he lit the fire, and Habs fans should be thrilled with. Yeah, again, I think that the Canadiens went in with a message that they wanted to deliver during that golf tournament, and they did. But I think it got misconstrued, and they probably didn't deliver it as clearly as they could have. But it also got misconstrued a lot by the media, I think, who had more interest. So the media heard, the Canadiens think they're going to make the playoffs this year. And guess what? That's a headline that's going to get people to watch. That's a headline that's going to get people to read. That's a headline that's going to get people to listen, right? So they ran with that. So rather than listen to the entire thing and listen to the entire context, they ran with the sexy headline, right? Jeff Gordon says the Canadiens will be in the mix for the playoffs this year. Or Jeff Gordon says the Canadiens' goal is to be in the mix for the playoffs this year. It's not what he said, right? Jeff Molson says that the Canadiens, expect to be in the mix or want to be in the mix or their goal is to be in the mix. Well, yeah, they do want to be in the mix, but it's not their goal, and it was never expressed that way. And it was lazy journalism, and it is lazy journalism to this day. And it's now snowballed to the point where it's been repeated so many times that people express it as if it's a fact, and it's not. And Arpon Basu is one of the central perpetrators of that. He does it all the time, and I call him out on it all the time. He said it in this most recent podcast, and I put it on Blue Sky. Arpon, you keep saying that in the mix was the Canadiens' goal this year. It's not. Stop saying it. And then I get all the Arpon Basu lovers, all the people, who are prophets or whatever of Arpon Basu, and they all say that I'm stupid and you don't know what I'm talking about. And then I show them this video, and they're like, "Wow!" And then they show me a headline of the Globe and Mail, and it just it is what it is. Marner's good, but I find him soft at times. Well, yeah, he's soft, but again, I would expect, Anonymous. I bet you $100 that you think that Lane Hudson's pretty good, right? But Lane Hudson's soft at times too. Not because he's soft, but because he's small. Right? Like Mitch Marner's not soft. Mitch Marner's small. So yeah, he's not going to win board battles against some guys. He's not going to win board battles against Leon Draisaitl. He's not going to win board battles with, Mikko Rantanen. He's not going to win board battles in the playoffs when, everybody is, fighting their asses off for every inch on the ice. He's going to struggle with that. Just like Lane Hutson's going to struggle with that. Just like Quinn Hughes struggled with that last year, right? Smaller players are going to struggle with that at certain times, right? So again, it's what do you expect? Mitch Marner's not going to go out there and throw big body checks. Mitch Marner's not going to go out there and beat 6'5" defensemen, on the forecheck, for the puck. It's just not going to happen. Doesn't make him soft. It just means that's a deficiency in his game, a deficiency that's not really his fault. He does the best with what he has, just like Lane Hutson does the best with what he has. He still works hard and he tries his best, and he has certain strategies that he implements that help him overcome his size as much as he can. But at the end of the day, there are certain scenarios where he's just not going to be able to do it. Right? Like he's got, Lane Hutson has been small his whole life. He's played against bigger guys since he was, 5 years old, 6 years old. But, he has figured out ways to be better at it. But at the end of the day, he's not going to go into the corner with, Shea Theodore. I guess he wouldn't really be in the corner with Shea Theodore. He's not going to go in the corner with, some of the best big power forwards in the NHL and come out with the puck every time. It doesn't mean he's soft. It just means that that's something that he isn't going to be the best part of his game. Defensive struggle is not at all surprising given where we are in the rebuild, and youth and defense core will get better. Again, it's a system. It's a system that they've learned. It's a system that they're working on. It looked really, really good for some time, but right now it's taken a bit of a step backwards. And again, I think it might have something to do with the fact that they're not on the ice practicing as much as they'd like to. But it is what it is, and they'll continue to mature, and they'll continue to get better, and they'll continue to master that system. Fat fingers versus Galley fingers. Galley probably has some pretty gnarly looking fingers. Thank you, Franco. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. We have 11 thumbs up, guys. Can we keep them coming? There's 14 people watching right now. We're going to do our A-team finally, guys. Are we ready for the A-team? I know that this is Entertap's favorite part of the show. I don't know if he's still listening or not. He obviously offered his A-team. I'm going to show you the A-team, guys, and then you can tell me whether you agree with me. I cheated a little bit. I'm gonna confess to cheating a little bit on the A-team tonight. If you're over on TikTok, guys, I see 7 of you over on TikTok. Come on over to YouTube. Follow the instructions on the screen behind me. If you want to see the A-team tonight, you got to come over here and check it out. The channel is Recliner Sports 4, like it says on the screen. And the show is called Habs After Dark. Should be easy for you to find if you go to your YouTube app. So here it is, guys. Oh, Entertap's here. Entertap's listening in the background. So here we go. So like I said, guys, I cheated a little bit. I cheated with the A-team tonight. I really couldn't pick between the 3 members of the first line. So I did the next best thing, and I picked all 3 of them, who I have named Cole Suskowski. So the first member of the A-team tonight is the first line, guys. Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Uri Slavkovsky, all 3 of them together. I think that's a pretty sharp picture too, guys. Let's go back. Let's have a look at it. You're going to hear the music. What do you think of that picture, guys? Isn't that a great picture of Cole Suskowski? Isn't that a great shot of the great Cole Suskowski? I thought that was a cool picture. Anyways, yeah, I cheated a little bit. So the first star, the first member of the A-team is Cole Suskowski. The second member is Caden Gooley. and then Alexandre Carrier, and of course Jakub Dobesh is the fourth member of the A team in no particular order. But yeah, I did cheat. So, anyways, do you guys agree with that, guys? Goulet, I thought Goulet and Carrier both played really, really well. Carrier, of course, scored his first goal as a Montreal Canadien. Goulet, again, is just, the comparison to Shea Weber is probably premature. It's not probably premature. It is premature. But he's certainly, there's signs of that in him. A guy who just puts his body on the line every night, whether it's, throwing a check, whether it's putting his body in front of a shot, whether, whatever it is, he just seems to be willing to do it. And it seems like almost every game at some point we see him sitting on the bench grimacing in pain after, taking a slap shot in the leg or in the arm or in the nuts or whatever. And he just, comes back for more every time. Carrier, again, somebody mentioned it earlier in the chat. He's just, changed this team completely. The team has evolved with him in the lineup, and it's a better team. It's not just his own contributions, but it's what he's allowed other guys in the defensive core to contribute has made a huge difference as well. So, and Jakub Dobesh again, for me, a good goalie is a goalie who makes the saves that need to be made when they need to be made. Right? He struggled a little bit in the first period, even in the second period a little bit. But when the rubber hit the road in the third period, when the Canadiens needed an opportunity to get back in the game. He certainly was there and kept them in the game as well. Now, I guess you could argue that if he'd made one of those saves in the first period, that they would have been in a better spot. But again, to me, a good goalie is one who makes the saves when they need to be made. So, but I apologize for cheating, Entertap. I apologize. Habs needed to be torn down. Watch them be a mediocre team masked by great goaltending for years. Middle of the pack drafts. The rebuild again. And one of my reasons for wanting to do a segment on the rebuild on Habs Therapy Day, Billy D, is because I think that's a great, starting point, right? It's not just about the team on the ice; it's about the entire organization, and not just about it's about the philosophies. It's about the approach to roster building. It's about the approach to the team. It's about the approach to the organization. It's about the way they deal with the media. It's about the atmosphere that they create within the team. It's deeper than all of that, right? And I'm actually not a huge fan of Pierre Maguire anymore. I used to like him a lot more than I do. But the latest episode of the Sick Podcast Eye Test with him and Jimmy Murphy. They had Jeff Gordon on, and a lot of really interesting insight into the rebuild on that show, even before Jeff Gordon came on the air. I would invite you to listen to that. It was very, very interesting stuff. They talk about Chantal Machabée, right? The Canadiens hiring Chantal Machabée, a former Habs media member who joined the Montreal Canadiens to be there. I don't know what her official title is, but again, there's a lot more to the rebuild than just, roster building. A lot more to it. Yes, Entertaps likes to lurk. He's a lurky lurk. Muck, what's going on? Muck likes to show up at the end of the show. I love it, Muck. It seems to be a trend where they give up a couple of goals early and then they need to grind to tie it up. Yeah, I think that's been an issue, having to come from behind. But yeah, to me tonight the issue was their defensive game. When they got the puck on their own, on the New Jersey side of the red line of the center line, they did quite well. It's just that they didn't get the puck over there as often because they were unable to create. They were unable to create the turnovers, the transition plays. They were unable to kill plays in their own end. They were unable to kill plays in the neutral zone like they normally would be if they were able to stick to their system. So, but you do bring up a good point, Muck, about they're chasing the game, right? When they're not playing well in their defensive zone, they're chasing the game. They're chasing the puck, right? The puck is not, they're not creating turnovers that are allowing them to, they're always chasing. They're chasing the play, and then they get behind by a goal. They're chasing the puck. They're chasing all the time, chasing, instead of controlling the game, right? When their defensive zone system's working well, the other team comes in the zone. Yeah, they might get a shot on goal or even a scoring opportunity, but that's it. And then the Canadiens kind of take it down. The Canadiens are not dictating the game when their defensive zone coverage isn't working. They're chasing the other team. The other team is dictating the game. They're responding to them, as opposed to the other way around. Yes, you said that about Dobesh facing some adversity for the first time, Franco. Yes. No one was wearing a rubber. Okay, well, I don't know if we need to go all the way down. It's after dark, Franco, but it's not that far after dark. So let's, we don't have to talk about all that, I don't think. I don't know if I touched on it already, but what were my thoughts on the Rantanen trade? It's weird. I think that it was there were parts of it that were good, and there were parts of it that were bad for both teams. I think it was good for Colorado that they were able to, get rid of Rantanen, who they clearly needed to get rid of. He wanted to sign for $14 million. They just couldn't do that, and I agree with them. They shouldn't do that. Just like Draisaitl, they shouldn't. Edmonton shouldn't have signed Draisaitl for $14 million. Marner Toronto shouldn't sign Marner for $12.5, $13 million. It just doesn't make sense. So them getting rid of him, in that sense, it was a good trade for Colorado. Do I think Colorado might have got different or better players in return for him? Maybe. I'm not upset at the entirety of the return, in that that they got a second and a third round draft pick. They got Natchez and Jack Drury. I just don't know if those were the guys I would have went for. Jack Drury seems like a bit of a non-factor a little bit to me. Natchez, there's question marks about what he's going to bring long term. From Carolina's perspective, they've brought in a game-breaking player, but they're going to pay him $14 million. I don't know what Chicago was doing, Entertap. I don't know what Chicago was thinking on that, but Billy D does bring up a good point here. We haven't had a drink yet. I'm going to drink some whiskey, actually. I'm not going to drink some rum. I have some rum up here, but I'll drink some whiskey. We didn't get to the 20. We didn't get to the 20 thumbs up, so we don't have to do the shot of the peanut butter whiskey. I don't know what's going on with the thumbs up, guys, but the numbers have been dismal the last few lives. There's 12 people in the live, and there's only 12 thumbs up. So if you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, guys, please do so. But yeah, I think that Kyle Davidson has demonstrated that he is a cheers, Billy D. That he's a not very good general manager in the NHL. The moves he made in the offseason were absurd. They're supposed to be rebuilding, but they signed a half dozen senior citizens in the offseason to play on their team, some of whom have proven that they're not even capable of really even playing in the NHL. Meanwhile, they've got a bunch of their youngsters down in the the American League, and their route to the NHL is being blocked by these senior citizens that Kyle Davidson hired. I'm not getting what he's trying to do. They got Natchez for 2 years, but he will likely walk to free agency. Also, seems like the Avs are kicking the rock down the road. Well, again, I think that people expected, people think that, because Mikko Rantanen is a 110-point guy in the NHL, that, he's going to get some ridiculous return for him. But the reality is that, the only thing that Carolina is getting is, they're getting Mikko Rantanen for, I guess it'll be 3 months now because it's still only, we're only coming up on February. But then they have to re-sign him, right? So they're basically, they gave up Natchez and Drury and 2 draft picks for the right to pay Mikko Rantanen $14 million. So again, Mikko Rantanen's a great hockey player, but you're not, you're not paying for Mikko Rantanen. You're paying for a small part of Mikko Rantanen, I guess. Chantal Machabé will be a historical communications hire to be remembered for decades and more. Absolutely, Franco. And again, a big part of a rebuild, the hardest thing about a rebuild in a lot of markets, and even in Montreal, is convincing the fans to accept it. Right? So, the fans are, if you're going to rebuild, you need to be sure that your fans are going to, because, you cannot have a rebuild if you're going to have, 4 years of a half empty arena, right? Like if only 10,000 fans are going to show up to watch a game at the Bell Center while you're rebuilding, you have to be prepared for that, right? And in some markets, that's just not going to work. And in the Montreal market, it's not so much about getting fans in the building. It's about dealing with all of the noise that will come from the media and from the fans if the Canadiens lose, 50 games in a season, which they did, right? So I think the Canadiens have made a conscious effort to be more transparent with the media. They've made a conscious effort to make the players and the coaches and the management more available to the media. The Canadiens were a very secretive organization for a really long time, right? There was a lot of cloak and dagger that kind of went on between the media and the organization, where the Canadiens, were very tight-lipped about anything that was going on, and but now they've made a conscious effort to change that. And Chantal Maccabee is a big part of that. So not just hiring her as somebody who was formerly in the media, because she understands what they want and what they're looking for, and she understands their point of view, but also she coaches the players, right? How to deal with the media, like how to do an interview, like how to and I think they've been very conscious about telling the players now that be yourself. Right. Rather, in the past, I think the players were taught to be secretive. Right. Don't say anything. Don't be tight-lipped with the media. Now, I think they're being taught, to be more free with what they want to say and act, act the way they want to act, as opposed to sort of always trying to keep the media in the dark. So I think that's a huge part of the rebuild as well. Nate was pissed at the trade. I don't think so, Billy D. I don't think he was. Rantanen could re-sign in Colorado. He could. Yeah, he could. He won't. They don't want to pay him. They're smart enough to know that paying a player $14 million doesn't make sense. But yeah, getting back to you, Billy D. I don't know that Nate's that pissed at the trade. All right, gang, let's get to our report card before we get going, before we finish up. All right, actually, let's do this first. We got to show you the big report card, and then we show you the little report card. So the Winning Habits report card, guys, they allowed more than 3 goals, so they get an X in that first box. They scored 3 or more goals, so they get a check mark in that box, guys. Special teams were kind of a non-factor tonight. I think both teams were 0 for 1 on the special teams, but I will give them a passing grade on that. I don't think he was surprised by the trade either, Entertap. I don't think he was surprised by the trade either. To be honest with you, actions that help the other team, and I get a failing grade on that. I think their failures in the defensive zone, the turnovers, the inability to kill plays. These are actions that help the other team. So I will give them a failing grade there. Weathering the storm, they did that to an extent. They were able to, to weather the offensive outbursts of the New Jersey Devils when they had to. They dealt with adversity, right? The adversity tonight being that they were just completely lost in their own zone. But they did still manage to, they still did manage to, to get a point out of it anyway, to get the game to overtime. I thought they did have a bit of an FU factor to me. Certainly it showed up in the third period when they kind of realized that, listen, our defensive zone system's not working here, so we're just going to kind of, bulldozer our way through it. We're just going to block everything that New Jersey throws at the net. I thought they did that quite well. So, they demonstrated a level of pride and that they care. In 60 minutes, they get a failing grade. I don't think they played a full 60 minutes. The first period, I think, was a bit of a stinker. I think they did turn things around a little bit in the second and third. So I will give them a failing grade on the on that aspect. So I don't know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think? Let me know. yeah, let me know what you think of that report card tonight. Media suggests he was very upset and surprised by the trade. Okay. I will tell you, Billy, that I think I told you this earlier. You were here earlier. I told you I talk regularly to somebody who is pretty closely connected to what's going on there. And I think Nathan was aware of what was going on, from what I understand. Was he disappointed? Yeah, I think he was disappointed. I think he and Rand didn't get along. Again, I'm. This is not coming directly from anybody, but this is just the sense that I got. But I think he also understands that it doesn't make sense to pay somebody that kind of money. So again, I don't believe it's accurate to say that he was surprised. I don't think it's accurate to say that he was upset. In a perfect world, would he have wanted him to stay? Absolutely. I think anybody would say that. But again, I think he understands the reasons why it had to happen. So that's just the sense I got. Again, I don't want to read too much into it because I didn't. It's not like I sat down and had a full debrief. With Nathan or with the person who's closely connected to him. I didn't at all, but I just didn't get a sense that this was a surprise or something that he was, devastated by or upset by. So I shouldn't say that. I said that the wrong way. It wasn't something that he was pissed off about. Certainly not pissed off at the team for doing it. If Rantanen regresses, Hart and Carolina will pay him $14 million, so there's a chance he does resign in Colorado for a discount, which would be a massive fleece for Colorado. I would say that that's an extraordinarily low chance. I think what you're probably going to see is Carolina re-sign him relatively quickly. I would think that Carolina would have had an opportunity to talk to him beforehand to get some sense of whether or not they would be able to re-sign him if he did go to Carolina. So I think they probably feel pretty confident that they are able to re-sign him. The idea that he's going to all of a sudden fall off a cliff between now and the end of the season and then all of a sudden go back to Colorado for $10 or $12 million, I think is it possible? Yeah, but I think it's extraordinarily unlikely. Habs changed the access to players. Imagine that under previous administrations, Habs players like Camilleri couldn't say hi to former players, and former players couldn't see. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that went on with the old organization in Montreal that I'm glad has changed. So I do get the picture, Franco. You're all good. Woo! That hit me good. Not if you had permission from the team, Entertap. Not if you had permission, right? So, you're in negotiations with, Carolina's in negotiations with Colorado when they're working on a trade, and Colorado says, or Carolina says, would you be opposed to us talking to him? And again, I'm not getting this from anywhere. I'm just speculating on this. It happens quite often. Carolina says to Colorado, like, would you mind us, having a chat with him to see what his thoughts are on re-signing and what have you? That wouldn't be tampering. And again, I'm not saying that happened, but typically in situations like this, that does happen. All right, gang. I think we're going to call her quits here tonight. We did rebound a little bit after last Thursday night show. I think that's a little bit of a better show. We did better. We didn't get a ton of thumbs up, guys. We got a few. We got 13, lucky 13. There are 14 people watching right now. So if you're watching the show on a replay, or if you're still here live and you're not yet subscribed, guys, hit the button down below. It's right there below my screen here, sort of as I'm pointing down at. hit that button to subscribe. We are trying to grow the channel. The more people, the better. I think the more conversation we will have. So it's been a great night, great conversation. But we can always use more people. We can always use more people in our group. We're trying to build a community where people can come and enjoy good, intelligent, civil conversation about the Montreal Canadiens and hockey in general. So if that's interesting to you, then certainly hit that subscribe button. Like I said, if you're watching right now live, or if you are watching later on a replay, I get that not everybody can be staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning to watch a show like this. But if you are watching it, Sunday morning or some other time, then certainly we would love for you to become part of our community and to hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. That will give you notifications when we do go live. We are going to be starting our new show, Habs Therapy Day, very shortly in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that as well. But that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Listen, I really appreciate everybody for coming. Franco, Entertap, Billy D. I won't go back through everybody, but there was a ton of you guys in and out of here tonight. I appreciate you guys for coming. I appreciate you for sticking around. Andre Vezina was here. Tony B was here. Anonymous was here. We had a bit of a falling out over Caden Primo, but that's okay. Franco, I already said. Vince 11 was here. I just saw another comment from Vince 11 I'm glad I didn't see it earlier because I probably would have got upset by it. Vince 11 says Struble has no value right now, so trading him doesn't make sense really. He was solid early in the year. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Marc-Antoine was here. He had some good questions as well. Marc-Antoine Savard. Lanny was here. Lanny was here for quite a bit. Gary Conway was here. Mike Liocci. And Claude Richard, of course, always is the first one in the room at the beginning of the show. So anyways, guys, it was a great time. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Good night. Good night, Entertap. Good night, Franco. We will see you in the next one. I think that you and I, Entertap, will probably be are we going on with Coach tomorrow? I know Coach usually does a Sunday night show, and usually it's myself and Entertap. We'll probably get a text message from him in the morning, setting his schedule for the week. So we'll see. Maybe we'll see you over on Coach Frenchie's show, Habs Nation Live, over there. So that's it for tonight, guys. Like I said, I appreciate everybody. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. If you're watching in a replay, thumbs up help us whether you're watching live or in a replay. We do appreciate. Somebody took away their thumbs up. That's even better. How about that? We had 13. Now we only have 12. So it is what it is, man. I appreciate it. There, it's back. All right. Have a good night, guys. I appreciate all of you. Habs lose 4-3 overtime. New Jersey Devils. Decent game, up and down. Good things, bad things. We'll see in the next game. We'll hopefully see them go back to their form that we saw over the Christmas holidays, and it should be exciting to watch. So have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your night. If it's not the end of your night, hopefully the rest of it is good. We will see you in the next one. Peace out. Coach is broadcasting the NFL game. Okay.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front. Docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.